In this module, we went through the process of setting Fiddler up to decrypt HTTPS traffic, then proxying a device that wouldn't trust the certificate through Fiddler. And in fact, what we saw then was a number of apps giving various messages that all essentially boiled down to the fact that the certificate couldn't be validated. Some of them said no network connection. One of them, the JB Hi-Fi app, was actually quite explicit about the certificate. We then moved on and I installed the Fiddler root certificate on the device. After that, we saw how an app like JB Hi-Fi would successfully load. The app now trusted the certificate. I want to show you what one of the other apps we looked at earlier on now does. Here's what the ANZ app does when loaded over HTTPS on a device that trusts the Fiddler root certificate. It looks like this. Now this is actually a bit familiar. In fact, this is exactly what we saw earlier on when the certificate chain couldn't be completed. Why is this happening? Well, it's very simple. The app is not seeing the certificate that it expects to see. Yes, it's seeing a certificate that, as far as the device is concerned, is actually valid, because after all, we've installed the Fiddler root certificate on the device, but that's not what ANZ is expecting to see. ANZ has implemented what we refer to as certificate pinning, and that's simply to say that they've explicitly said this is the exact certificate we expect you to see. If you see another certificate, even though it might be valid, then do not establish the connection. Now, often that's done by looking at certificate thumbprints. You'll find that every certificate has its own unique thumbprint. And indeed, you can see that by inspecting the certificate in your browser on the desktop. This unique thumbprint means that when you control the client, you can be very explicit about what it should see. Let me explain what I mean by that. When you create a website, the client is ultimately the browser. You can't control the browser. You can merely load web content into it. You can't change the way that browser does its certificate validation. Conversely, if you create a mobile app, then you are orchestrating the way that mobile app communicates to the back end, and you can also control the way it does its certificate validation. It can inspect the certificate and not only validate that it was issued by a valid CA, but that it has the appropriate thumbprint. When another certificate is issued, even a valid one, like the Fiddler one is, once the device is compromised, the app can simply reject it. Now that's good on the one hand. It's a good additional defense, and for the likes of banks, it makes sense. But it also poses some challenges. So for example, certificates expire. They have to be renewed. The new one will have a different thumbprint. Yes, you control the client, but now you need to get that client updated before that new certificate is rolled over. Now, of course, you can always issue the new certificate before the old one expires and then update the app to validate either the old thumbprint or the new thumbprint, and you've got a bit of crossover, but you do also run the risk of people using the old app looking for the old thumbprint, not updating, and then suddenly hitting the new API that serves a certificate that doesn't match what the old app expects. There are various mitigations to this, but it does remain a bit of a challenge as well. I did want to touch on this though, because it is an important concept, and it will also help you understand what's going on if you try proxying traffic on an app like ANZ and you get a response like this. It's not your connection. You've not incorrectly installed the certificate on the client. It's just that the client is being a whole lot smarter than what you probably expected it to be.